Hello dear friend, Patrick here again. I want to continue with my review of the Immortality Key by Brian Muraresku, but before I do, I want to share with you briefly from what the teacher told us in Luke 7 verses 31 to 35. He said, how shall I compare the men of this generation? What shall I say that they're like? He says, and he answers his own question. He says, they're like children that sit in the marketplace and they call to each other. They say, we piped for you and you didn't dance. We wailed and you didn't weep. And he explains why this is so, right? He says, for John the Baptist came eating no bread and drinking no wine, and he said, oh, he's got a demon. But the Son of Man is come eating and drinking, and you say, behold, a gluttonous man and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. And wisdom is justified of all her children. What does this phrase mean, right? So he says, what are the men of this generation like? He said, what are the men that he meets are like? They are like children, first of all, because they have an excuse for everything. They say, oh, John the Baptist, he kept himself really pure. He didn't, he ate locusts and wild honey. So he didn't wear any fancy clothes. He only wear like camel's hair. And they said, oh, he's demonized. He's crazy, right? But then the Son of Man comes, the teacher, Jesus himself, and makes wine at the wedding in Cana. He hangs out with sinners and prostitutes, and he basically does his own thing. And they say, oh, look at him. He's a drinker, a wine bibber, they call him, a friend of publicans and sinners. So we can't listen to him either. So they won't listen to someone who keeps himself really pure, and they won't listen to somebody who's more open. So no matter what God provides to them, the men of today, the men of the current generation, Jesus called them, or you could extrapolate it to today. It doesn't matter what you tell them, they'll have an excuse not to listen. This is what he's saying. He said the men of this generation always have an excuse not to listen, no matter from one extreme to the end and everything in between. They'll have a reason why no, that can't be true because of this. And the same thing is happening today. And he's saying wisdom is justified of all her children. In other words, the wisdom of the world is like the foolishness of children that will never listen no matter what supporting evidence you give them. They will never admit that there's a God, no matter what. The atheists of today are like children. They reinforce their own wisdom amongst themselves using childish excuses. This is what he's talking about, right? He said, no, it can't be like that because it's not like that. Oh, no, it can't be like that because of that. No matter what angle you present to them, look at the beauty of creation. Oh, no, it's just random chance. It can't be like that. Look at this beautiful miracle that happened. Oh, that's just coincidence, Look at this amazing revelation that God revealed. Oh, no, that can't be true because, that's just a myth. But they'll believe all these other myths. And that's what this guy is doing in the Immortality Key. Same thing. Wisdom is justified of her children. He surrounds himself with other children like himself that support his ridiculous ideas, his ridiculous assumptions. I just finished up to chapter 6, which is page 128. I just thought I'd give you a couple of quick updates from here. And hopefully I can pull out these things for you. I should have made clearer notes on them so that I could share them with you. See, he says, chapter 6 is called Graveyard Beer. And so he goes through and he says that they found this evidence of beer. And so because they found evidence of beer in a grave, he says it must have been a holy sacrament because it's next to this graves, right? And he goes on to say that beer was the cause of, instead of the agricultural revolution, he calls it the beer revolution. So it caused these people to want to settle down and just stay in one spot because they were able to make beer. He goes on and on about beer. And he says, promoting beer from an everyday beverage to a sacrament. He asked the question, whatever made us abandon the caves for the city would almost certainly have carried religious meaning promoting beer from an everyday beverage to a sacrament. You see how he inserts that word in? He always has to use that word sacrament. And he says the sacrament, by the time he got to Eluesis as a minty beer around 1500 BC, would have had an astoundingly long history behind it, longer than ever thought possible. And so he brings in these assumptions and just inserts them out of thin air to support his own ideas. And he shows this picture, he shows this picture, and he says a photo of a 13,000-year-old boulder mortar. And he says, apparently used to brew prehistoric beer. It's a mortar. It could be used to grind grain. It could be used to make all kinds of things, right? But he makes the assumption that it had to be, it had to be this way because he wants it to be that way. And always using the word probably, apparently, could have been. Beer is the oldest biotechnology in the world, he says, and it would establish a sacramental link, however delicate, between prehistoric beer and the psychoactive kukeon at Eluesis. He keeps repeating the same lie over and over again to repeat his ideas. And again, he includes these pictures here of these ancient, artifacts. And he says 2 of 6 limestone basins excavated from the archaeological site in Turkey, vessels like this barrel upper right, he calls it a barrel, and trough lower right could have once accommodated up to 42 gallons of prehistoric beer, he says, according to him. Now you have these 2 archaeological sites showing a trough and this big barrel. Who's to say that's not bathtubs? All the assumption that he makes in this book, up to, as far as I've read, all the way up to the end of chapter 6 so far, he could have made all this research to try and make associations with the sacrament of baptism, if he wanted to, and say, oh, they had these ancient baptismal pods, and when they went under the water, they wanted to have this psychedelic experience, and that's why the Christians copied this ancient sacrament of baptism. It's just as ridiculous. There's no reason for him to say, oh, this had to be used for making beer. It had to be. And they try and find this residue, and sometimes they don't find any residue, so they say, well, we'll have to do the tests again. It's just so lame. His speculations are just pulled out of thin air to support his preconceived idea. He wants to present this theory, and he surrounds himself with other academic scholars who believe the same theory and say, okay, the beer had to have some type of psychedelic aspect to it, and this is why. It's just ridiculous. Total ridiculousness. You could make the same argument about other sacraments, funeral rites, baptism, and then try and say that it's some kind of psychedelic ancient pagan mystery when they have no evidence for it. It's all speculation. They say, oh, well, we got this ancient residue. It means this, it means that, and these ancient artifacts mean this. It had to mean that. And even they find pictures of people and say, oh, this is this guy, Persephone, and this is this goddess of this person. Could have been some guy's wife that used as a model. They don't know who these characters. You can see the images that they use. If I jump ahead a little bit in chapter 6, he presents these ancient artifacts that they find, and then one of them he says terracotta head of Demeter of Persephone, and then the other one it says a Greek goddess. Well, they look the same. Who's to say one is a Greek goddess and one is not? Who's to say one is just an ordinary person that someone just decided to create a image of them? They're just totally nondescript images of female characters, but he says, oh, this is this person and they did this and they were involved in that, and he makes up this big, long, convoluted story. And I'm sorry to go on and on about it, but it's so hard to get through because it's filled with total speculation from the get-go. non-stop speculation. So God bless you. Thank you for watching. Wanted to give a quick update on that. Don't want to go on too long about it, but I'm finally getting my way through a little bit. Page 128. We still got 2/3 of the book to go, but so far it's just very, very depressing and non-scholarly, just a ridiculous waste of time. It's so discouraging that people actually will listen to somebody that is just pulling ideas out of the air. So thank you for watching. God bless you. I wish I had a better book to review for you, but I won't make that mistake again, guaranteed. God bless you. I love you very much. I hope you're doing well. Take good care of yourself. Don't waste time reading stupid books like this one. Talk to you later. Be good. Bye-bye now.